So welcome everybody. This is just a reminder that our webinar is about learning to blog, what is going on in your class with the parents of your students. We hope that we can answer your questions when you go to start a blog, how to keep it fun and engaging, and how to use it as an important tool of your teaching to the whole family. As Melanie indicated, she is an education specialist with one of her areas of focus being on teacher development. Lisa Langer is also an education specialist with a focus on family education. And I'm Lisa Lieberman-Barzilai, an adult learning specialist with a focus on young adults. We have two guest panelists with us this evening. One is Debbie Harris, who is the technology coordinator at Sager Solomon Schechter Middle School in Northbrook, Illinois, and teaches religious school at Lakeside Congregation for Reform Judaism. She has been involved in Jewish education for over 30 years. She received an education degree from Northwestern University with a concentration in instructional media. Her students podcast, blog, edit video, and create claymations. I want to be in her class. She is a 2011 recipient of the Grinspoon Steinhardt Award for Excellence in Jewish Education. Rabbi Nikki Greninger was born and raised in Denver, Colorado, and graduated from Dartmouth College. She was ordained as a rabbi in 2008 from the New York campus of the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, where she also earned a Master's of Arts in Religious Education. Rabbi Greninger wrote her rabbinic thesis on the topic of tefillah education. Over the years, Rabbi Greninger has served in many different capacities as a Jewish educator. She's been a camp counselor and program director, religious school teacher and director, B'nai Mitzvah tutor, youth group advisor, and teachers of adults. Rabbi Greninger currently serves as the director of education at Temple Isaiah in Lafayette, California, which is in the Bay Area. So the word blog is actually a shortened version of weblog. A blog is a collection of entries such as commentary, stories, or photos that are posted on a website. It allows people to share their thoughts and ideas and receive responses to the post so that it's interactive and not just one-directional. As you can see from the picture on the slide, a blog does not have to have only one author. The URJ has created a Reform Judaism blog shown on the screen. There are various topics, which you can see on the left side of the screenshot. And there are different writers, all part of the conversation. Your congregation or your school could have a single blog with multiple authors, or you can create your own individual blog. You might want to discuss this with your school director, which direction you want to take that. And just for your information, blog posts are typically displayed in reverse chronological order, with the latest post at the top. This allows you to go backward and see all of the entries of the authors and the different topics that they blog about. So now we're going to launch a poll. And the question that we are asking is, what are you hoping to gain by blogging? You can click on any of the responses listed, and you're not limited to just one answer. You can have multiple answers. The three that we've listed are create a stronger relationship with the families in my class, inspire others about the topics we are discussing in class, and share what's happening in class with the outside community. Are we ready to show the poll yet? I can't see how far we are in the polling.
I think so.
Okay. So I am not seeing, I don't see the results, so maybe somebody can share.
If you click on your polls tab, hit the plus sign,
I know I'm afraid it's going to happen.
Okay, I'll jump in, Lisa. So
Thanks.
85% of you, I think everyone can see it, everyone besides Lisa, suggests that you're thinking about blogging in order to create a stronger relationship with the families in your class. 38% are interested in inspiring others about the topics you're discussing in class, and 46% are interested in sharing what's happening in the class with the outside community beyond the families in the class. And if there's other ideas that you have about what you're hoping to gain, feel free to type those in the questions box, and we can do our best to talk about them, and other people can have a sense of what's going on.
Or you can, if you would like, you can raise your hand and Adam can unmute you if you'd like to share it.
So we think that one of the things that's important to consider as you launch into blogging is to really think about why you're doing this. What's your voice going to be? And having an answer to this first poll is one way to do that. Blogs, there are a lot of benefits to blogging about your class as a teacher, as a supplementary school classroom teacher, which is what most of the people on this webinar are. Blogs support casual culture in which to communicate. They're really different than direct emails or letters home to parents. It's much more casual in culture typically. It's a place to reflect and ponder, to using multimedia, using multi-voices, using multiple approaches. And as you begin to blog, it's important to ask yourself what you hope to gain for yourself, for your students, and for your community by blogging. What benefits might there be? Blog offers many potential benefits for the supplementary school teacher. And feel free to type in some of your ideas in the question box as I'm going to continue to describe some of the different categories of blogs. Blogs can be something that is a place for you as a teacher to be reflective about teaching or about students learning. It's a place for offering insight and contemplation, for sharing aha moments from your teaching. It takes what you're doing in the classroom and lets you have a place to put it, because teaching, we know, is an often really isolating experience, and this blogging offers an opportunity to put it out there. Your blog could be a go-to site for resources, explanations, guidance, answers to common questions that you might get from your parents, from your students, or from other people in the teaching community. It could be a place for ideas for students and families or others in the community to engage with the topics and the ideas that you're talking about in class in their homes. A blog could really be a community gathering place, a site where you as a teacher can build trust and relationships with families, students, or other teachers to, again, extend what's happening in the classroom and your relationship with those students, which we know is so critical beyond the hours that you are face-to-face with your students. A blog often is a platform for community sharing of ideas, a place for you to share your stories and feedback about what's happening in your teaching. And in some ways, most importantly, it can be a place to celebrate, to share the delight in your work as a teacher. There are some comments here in the question box. Someone says teachers in their school blog because the director pays us to, which launches us into our next poll, actually. Sharing an aha moment is something that someone else was interested in. So here's another way of thinking about why you're interested in learning about blogging. So the first poll asked about what you hoped to gain, and the second poll is, why are you interested in learning about blogging? Is it because you want to add to your teaching toolkit, a place to become and exercise your skills in being a reflective practitioner in teaching? Or is it because your congregational educator or your congregation asked you to blog about what's happening in class? And again, you can feel free to click more than one answers or share other responses you might have in the question box. And we'll give a minute for that poll. And I think we launched these polls, we asked you these questions as a way of encouraging you to really think about what is the voice you want your blog to have. It might have multiple voices because you have guest bloggers, but what is the purpose of it? And our understanding is that the clearer your purpose is, the stronger the message is, and the more compelling the blog becomes for readers, and the more compelling it becomes for the person who is blogging. So let's see what our results show. It shows that how awesome is that teachers in our supplementary congregational schools are really looking to grow in depth and breadth and skill as teachers, and that is phenomenal. So thank you for that you all as adult learners and as teachers want to grow your teaching toolkit and to increase your ability and your skill as reflective practitioners. And a few of you are being asked to and paid to blog by your congregations. Someone asked the question here that, someone commented you'd like to share the ideas with your fellow teachers as well if you're talking about the ideas that we're talking about on this webinar. Just a reminder, we're recording right now, and the webinar will be archived on the URJ website. We'll have information about that at the end of the webinar, so anyone in your community can go and listen to this and look at the slides. And a question about, does a blog take place of a weekly newsletter to send to parents? I'm gonna hold that off for Nikki and Debbie to respond to. So we'll move on to the next slide, and I'm gonna ask, and Melanie could ask this too. We're gonna ask 3 of our guest bloggers to respond to a couple of questions. And first, we'll speak with Melanie Cole-Goldberg, who in addition to being an education specialist with the URJ, is a teacher in a congregation in Miami, Florida, and has recently launched a teacher blog. So Melanie, what motivated you to launch this blog?
I have to say what motivated me was a little competition that my husband had a blog for a few years, and I wanted to kind of catch up to him. That was part of it. But I think I was really inspired by participating in the NATE conference last January in Seattle, where it was focused on technology. And I learned a lot about ways to use technology. And being somebody who is not naturally comfortable with technology, I was kind of inspired to try and to try to do it. So I signed up for I think it was through NATE also, I signed up through a boot camp that was being held, supported by Darim Online, which is a technology organization working in the Jewish community. And they kind of unpack, what blogs are and how to do them and things like that, and it was very inspiring. So when I knew I was going to be teaching, I'm teaching 5th grade, I talked to my director, who's a very technological advanced person, and I said I would like to try a blog for my class, and she said, great, go for it. So that's what was inspiring to do it.
Great, thank you. And so that's what inspired you and motivated you. How do you decide what to write when you do post your blogs? And maybe in your response you can respond to some of these questions about whether or not your blog replaces a weekly email or newsletter that might go to parents that describes what's happening in class. How do you think about the difference, or has this replaced your email?
Okay, well, it doesn't replace an email. Our school sends out a weekly email with little updates from each teacher about what's going on with learning in the class. So that is something that I just write a little bit for. So that goes out weekly. But the blog was something that I was really hoping to, like a lot of the people on the webinar said, I wanted to connect to my families, and I wanted to share things and have make it interactive. So I find that the blog is different than the newsletter because I can post questions and I can put pictures up. I have not yet put up a picture of anybody in the class. I've put other pictures, and I know that's something that we might talk about later. But I wanted to kind of get the kids to be involved. And I'm at the point where I'm just starting to, ask kids if they want to be guest bloggers, and I've been trying to encourage families to, also participate. So I have to say, I'm new to it. I started this in September, and I have been posting the blog with pictures and fun things and like little questions and things like, kind of something like, look, we're going to be doing this. What do you think about that? Put your answer on the blog, or as a family, what do you think about this? But it's definitely, for me, a work in progress, but it's fun. I mean, it's definitely a challenge for me, but I'm liking it, and I think I'm getting better as I go.
Great. Thank you. Debbie Harris, I'm going to ask you a few questions now. We'll start with the same one with Melanie. What motivated you to blog?
I think Lisa spoke earlier about isolation, and I think that's really what resonates with me. I'm a tech coordinator in a middle school, and I don't have a lot of opportunity to share what kinds of things I'm doing, with actual people. I'm the only person who does what I do in my building. And it really gave me an opportunity to find that bigger community. So I started blogging. I've been blogging for a number of years, and so when I started, it was still kind of, you had to really explain to people what it was, and I think people still kind of thought it was like people just keeping an online journal, and who really cares what I did today, those kinds of things. But I really started to find at the very beginning, from the very start, I really found that it gave me a community, and it gave me an audience that I didn't have in my local community. And I live in Chicago. I mean, it's not like I'm isolated really geographically, but it really has allowed me to find those other people who have the passions I have, which are to integrate technology and Jewish education. It's given me an amazing avenue to share what my kids are doing, to share what I'm thinking, to share results of wonderful experiments, to share sometimes things that didn't work so well, and to get feedback from other people, how maybe you could have done it differently. And it also just gives me a place to kind of, work out what it is I'm trying to play around with, and to have that opportunity to do some online brainstorming that I wouldn't have personally to do.
Thank you. How frequently do you post?
I post at least once a week. I send out to my colleagues in my school. Every Friday I send an email called Links You'll Love, which is just great websites that I've tripped across during the week that I know my colleagues will be interested in. And the feedback from them was really, we love to get the email, but we don't want to keep them. So is there something else you could do with them? And I started posting them online. And I will admit that part of that was it was self-serving on my own part, because I knew that if I post it on my blog, at least I'll know where to find it later. So, and that's a really nice, that's a really nice feature, is that it is that online journal. So once you put it there, you're going to be able to find it again.
So in some ways that's an answer to the question about what's the difference, what's the benefit of blogging in addition to or instead of regular emails to parents. This is a log. It captures it, it keeps it, and no one else, everyone has it. Puts the information in the hands of our students and their families. They have access to it whenever they want it in an organized, accessible way, rather than having to figure out how to capture it on their computer, in their folders, or on their in their email.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, if you really start to use like tagging and things like that, which it's not hard, once you do that, then you really have, not only can you go back and say, whoa, I remember blogging about this, you can say, wow, I remember blogging about this, and it was, in reference to this category, so I'm going to know where to find it right away. In terms of how many people read it, I try not to be so narcissistic to look every single time I post, but I do anyway. There are times, some posts go in my own brain viral, so maybe there's going to be 75, 100, or 150 views, and I swear they're not all me or my children. But other times really it's maybe 6 a day, 7 a day. So, it's not, do I think I'm changing the world? Absolutely not. Would I consider this a replacement for an email that shows up in somebody's mailbox whether they want it or not? No, not at all. I think you have to do both. And I think the really amazing thing is that you can do the work once and maximize it. For instance, you can blog about it and send an email to your parents saying there's a new blog post, click here to go to it, which I imagine would be helpful. For some people, they still need that reminder coming into their email. So I try to do as many things as possible. The one thing that I have found is that sometimes I post something that I think is absolutely brilliant. And of course, I think everything is brilliant, but sometimes I post something that I think is absolutely brilliant, and I don't get a whole lot of comments on it. And you have to just kind of get past that. You have to know that you're kind of just shouting out there into the world.
So how do you know if you've been successful in addition to readership? And sometimes, if you don't want to check to see how many people have read that post, what are other ways that you've been successful for yourself and for your readership?
Well, I have to tell you, when I really look back on this, what is now quite a significant body of writing, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the record that it has kept. For instance, my daughter was studying in Jerusalem a couple of years ago, and we Skyped with her in my classroom, and I took a picture of the kids Skyping with her and posted it. When you look back on those kinds of things and you think to yourself, wow, I'm proud of the fact that I did these great things, and I took the time to write it up, and I took the time to share it. Certainly comments are really wonderful, and when you get them, for me, that's a real high when I get them, especially when I get them from my students. So I know that they're going and they're looking and they're taking the time to comment. So, and I do get them, but not as often as I would like. I also connect my blog to Twitter, and I have it set up. It automatically does it so that as soon as I post something, a tweet goes out that says I've posted a blog post. And occasionally I can see that people have retweeted that, which I'm assuming means that they went and looked and and thought that they would share it too. So that also is a very nice kind of gauge of your success out there. I also have experience with cross-posting. So, for instance, I'm involved with the I Center, which is a local organization here in Northbrook, and occasionally they'll pick something up that I've posted. So I know somebody's reading it, and I also know that they thought that that was worth repeating.
That's great. How did you get better as a blogger? You mentioned a few minutes back that you started out, hadn't done it a lot. You've done it for a long period of time now. What are some of the tricks and tools? And Melanie also mentioned that it's a work in progress. What are tips and suggestions you might have for someone blogging about increasing their skill at the craft?
Keep doing it. Keep reading other blogs. And for blogging, I really think that shorter is better. Those are my big tips. When I go to look at a blog post, if it looks too long, I move on.
That's great. Those are great tips. Thank you. Nikki, let's go to Nikki Greninger, who is a Director of Education in a congregation in Northern California, who has inspired some of her teachers to blog and also maintains a blog herself. So Nikki, let's talk about your teachers and why you, as the educational leader of the congregation, wanted them to blog. What did you hope to gain? What have you gained by having your teachers blog?
Well, I should start by saying that we send a weekly email with information about what's happening in the religious school, but that email does not necessarily contain updates on everything that's going on in every class that we have. I think part of our issue in our congregation, which is a fairly large congregation, is information overload. that the parents feel like they get too many emails. And once they get so many emails, they just stop reading them. And so I think historically in our community, the teachers did send out weekly newsletters, first in hard copy and then over time it was on email. But particularly if you have more than one child and you're getting several different emails from different teachers all the time, it's a little much for a lot of our families. And so we've been experimenting with different ways to connect with families about what is happening in the classroom. And so last year, during the 10-11 school year, we created a website that was called From the Classroom, and I required teachers to submit to me an overview of what they did that day in class, and then we put all of those up on the website in one place so that it wasn't in email format. It was just somewhere that parents could go to find out what was going on in their kids' class if they were interested. And what we found is that parents didn't go there, and that frankly it was very time consuming for teachers to be sending things to me and for me and my assistant to be sort of the gatekeepers to putting information online, that there's no need really for us to be the go-between. And what they could put up was fairly limited because it was all just part of one website and each teacher would just have a little blurb, a few sentences. So not only was it not really being used by the parents, but it was a very cumbersome process. So this year we were rethinking how to better connect our teachers with our parents and to bridge the gap of knowledge of what's happening in the classroom and how to also further learning at home in terms of additional links and resources and videos and things like that. And so I think somebody else had mentioned they participated this summer in the Darim kind of boot camp on technology and Jewish education, and I did that as well. And from that I was just really inspired about the potential of blogging for teachers. I've kept a blog off and on over the past several years, but I felt like a blog would be a really great way for teachers to share what they're doing in class, to reflect on what they're doing. In some cases it can be very interactive. They can post questions, and sometimes they've done little contests or other things where they'll ask kids to do something at home and bring the information back in. And a blog also allows a much richer sharing than an email or just posting on a little website like we had before, because they can post videos, they can post pictures, they can post links to different things, they can post student work. So it's been great. I'm really glad that we're doing it this year.
Can you point to or describe any successes for the school overall because of increased teacher blogs?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that the parents feel much more connected to what's happening because they see what's happening in the classroom more. Instead of even just hearing about it or hearing a few sentences of this is what the kids are learning, very often the teachers can post or do post pictures of what's going on. So I think in some cases a picture's worth 1,000 words, so they may know about a project, but then they see their kids doing it. That makes a big difference. Or when the kids create something, like we have a class that recently created a video, a stop motion animation creation video, and then they post it, and so there's a way for the parents to see what the kids are doing and creating, and for the kids to be excited and share with their parents what they're doing. There's just a real energy around it, and when there isn't that sort of place to go online for parents, it's missing that connection a little bit.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to move on and ask both Debbie and Nikki to comment a little bit about what works and what doesn't work in blogging, and then we'll stop and open the line to questions. If you have questions, feel free to keep the questions coming in the question log, but know that you'll have a chance to ask a question live in a few minutes. So Debbie, what works about blogging for you as a teacher? What's your advice for teachers? I'm sorry.
Nikki talked a little bit about how it takes out the middleman, and I think that that's just huge. It's got an immediacy to it that teachers can capitalize, and you can do it right in the classroom. So, if you have an iPad or a laptop that you can put in a student's hand, they can get those blog posts up there right away, and I think that's huge. That that you just don't lose that kind of time. I mean, theoretically, you can have those blog posts up by the time the carpool gets the kids home. I
would imagine if the kids are participating in the blog and posting during class time, by the time they get home, they're going to be the ones who drive their parents to look at the blog.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, studies have found now that when children write for blogging, the quality of their writing is much, much better than when they are writing for, you know, to turn in like a traditional paper, because they know it's like you're being published. So I think that in terms of student reflection, it can be very powerful. I like to use photos. You know, I know we have tons of issues that we have to deal with in terms of privacy, but I believe in having, you know, photos of what's going on. They don't have to be of one child. They don't have to be identified. But, you know, to be able to get that glimpse into a classroom and see, you know, kids excitedly working on a project, that is just a tremendous asset for your blog. Student voices, it's another way to send home reminders. I don't think it's the only way, and I don't think it should be the only way, but it's one more way to, you know, to send home, you know, we're reading this and this for next week, don't forget. But I think really the key to it and its real hook is that immediacy. Get it out there and get it out there quickly.
Can you just say a word or two about privacy? You said there are a myriad of issues. What are 2 or 3 issues or questions that you've asked about privacy? Or maybe the better question is, who in your school helped to ask and answer some of those questions?
I certainly take it to my educator, and she has taken it to her education committee at Solomon Schechter, where I teach during the week. It was a big issue that we struggled with as a school and as a board. The bottom line is that we are, I mean, we ask all of our parents at the beginning of the year whether we can take their children's pictures, whether we can use them in print and web, you know, to put in print or on the web, and some parents will exercise their right to say no, and you have to know about that, and of course you have to respect it. But I love to have those pictures of the kids up there. We just, you know, we don't identify them, and we try not to have it be just 1 or 2 students. I mean, you know, a group of students is a safer. It feels better for us to have up there.
Great, thank you.
But I think it's hard for us as teachers to talk about what we're doing without having the kids in there.
Yeah, thank you. Nikki, what advice do you have for teachers about what makes a blog work?
Well, actually, first I want to respond about the privacy thing, because that actually has not been an issue for us at all. We just have a general congregational policy that we don't post names with pictures, and that has not been a problem in the sense that we post pictures all the time. We also actually do have a little release as part of the religious school registration, but we make it pretty clear that we never identify anyone by name, and that usually includes first names too. Like, we don't say, this is Sarah drawing a picture. So if they're pictures but there's no names associated with it, we've never had any problems or complaints or legal issues or anything. So and in fact, I've had to remind my teachers that it's okay, like, please put up pictures of your students. The parents love to see their kids doing that. So anyway, but in terms of what works, I would say the #1 most important thing is that if you're going to have a blog, then you should post frequently. And by frequently, I mean once a week at the minimum. Or maybe every other week, but that would be about as infrequent as you can do it, because if you don't post often enough, people stop looking or stop knowing or noticing that there's even a blog there. Whereas if you post frequently, then it's something that's kind of on the radar and people are more interested in, oh, I wonder what they've posted recently. And again, if the goal is to help connect parents to what's going on in the classroom, then, you know, presumably your classes are happening at least once a week. So frequent posts is helpful. I would say that's a challenge. It's a challenge for me as a poster. It's also a challenge to remind all my teachers. But if it's something you're going to do, then you have to, I think, stick with it. That being said, posts can take 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, you don't need to spend a lot of time on it. It's more just remembering to do it.
That's the beauty. That's the why I emphasized in the beginning. Many blogs have this. It's a casual culture that is just putting it out there to keep it fresh.
Right. So I was going to say another thing that works is links to really good websites or interesting websites, maybe on a topic. If you were teaching something about Shabbat, then you could post links to the blessings for, Shabbat dinner or other interesting reading relating to Shabbat. Videos are always a good idea if you can link to a video or embed a video, which is fairly easy to do. Again, that takes 2 minutes to link to a video, but those are very popular. If teachers can post some kind of questions or teasers that kids can discuss at home and bring in the answers, we never require it because we do have some parents that don't want their kids involved with computers at home or don't want the extra kind of work, so to speak, but we usually try to do incentive types of things, like maybe there will be a little prize for the kid who comes in with such and such that they did at home. And, as I said before, pictures are really great. And then the other thing is just not only do you want the posts to be frequent, but the community needs frequent reminders that your blog exists. So you should always have the link to it on your email, like as a kind of a tag on your email, meaning like in your signature. And then frequent reminders, whether it's by email or other ways of reminding parents. I have one teacher that did an incentive program to get parents to sign up to be members. You can follow a blog, meaning whenever somebody posts, then you get an email telling you that there's a new post. Most blog platforms have that ability, and so we really wanted parents to become followers or members or subscribers or whatever the term is for their child's blog. And so my second grade teacher did a thing where she told parents that for any parent that signed up to follow the blog, then the teacher would put, I think it was $0.25 or $1 in the class tzedakah. And we have a kind of a tzedakah competition in our school, so it helps the whole class. So it was a small amount of money on the teacher's part that she thought it would be kind of a good incentive for the kids to get their parents to sign up so that whenever she posts on her blog, the parents know there's been a new post, so they get a reminder.
So very quickly, because I want to be conscious of time, Nikki, what are some things you would say about what doesn't work for blogging?
Well, as I said, the biggest thing is just not updating it. If you start a blog and then you don't update it for a month, it just, people aren't going to keep looking at it. So that's the biggest challenge, is just remembering, sending yourself reminders or something like that. I would say also just sort of monitoring the content. In my role as a director, I try to always keep up with what the teachers are posting and occasionally, talk to them about, maybe they linked to a website that doesn't really reflect our philosophy and we don't really want to be sending our parents to, etc. So just, checking in with your educator or other people you work with that, links and videos and things like that are appropriate. Those are really the only challenges that we faced. And some teachers aren't so comfortable with technology, so just being comfortable with it. Though it is pretty easy, as long as you have somebody maybe helping you walk through it the first time, it's pretty straightforward.
Debbie, do you have anything to add about some factors that contribute to a blog not working?
Well, I really want to echo what Nikki said about frequency. If you don't update it, people are going to lose interest. And don't expect, I sometimes post things that I think are so provocative and so exciting that I'm going to get tons of comments. Don't be discouraged when that doesn't happen. Just keep going.
Great, thank you. I'm going to open the line up to questions if anybody has some questions. If there's a question someone would like to raise, please raise your hand. And we'll let you ask your question. And if not, people have been pretty good about putting questions in the question box, but I'll give it another couple of seconds before we move on. Okay, Melanie, why don't you keep moving along?
We have a raised
question.
hand,
Okay.
yes.
Great.
Deborah Burkhead, you're unmuted.
What are some resources to help us learn how to technically blog? I don't even know where to get started.
So the URJ webinar archives has an archived webinar just like this that you can go into and listen to and watch the slides that gives some of that how-to information. We'll have that link posted at the end of one of the slides at the end of this webinar, as well as Darim Online, which is a phenomenal resource on in the Jewish world and Jewish education and technology. Those are really important questions, and does someone else have another response?
Yeah, I was going to answer, actually. This is Nikki. There are different blogging platforms, meaning there's free websites that you can use to create a blog. I think the easiest one is called Blogger. So you can just go to www.blogger.com, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you might want to sit with somebody that's comfortable with computers if you're not as comfortable with it, you know, whether it's a friend or a spouse or a child or something. But the software, the website is really easy to use. So you just create an account, like you create a username and a password, and then it's pretty straightforward in terms of how you actually do a post. So there are other ones too, but I think that's the easiest.
Great. Okay. Let's move on to talking about building readership and drive to your blog. Melanie.
Okay, well, I think this is just repeating a few things that we've mentioned, that you need to make sure that people sign up for your blog. And it's very helpful if you use networking tools like Debbie mentioned. She connects her blog to Twitter, also Facebook. You can do that. And to post frequently, like we said, remind people that the blog is there, and to invite guest bloggers. I think that's a good way to build readership that people kind of like to see. I think they would be interested in seeing each other posting. It's not just you posting. And the guests could be parents, it could be students, and it could be other temple professionals or members of the congregation. So that's just a good way to build your readership. And making your blog interactive is something that's really, really important, because you don't want it just to be you saying everything and not having any interaction. So some of the ways that you could do this is by posting questions, by having contests, by posting links to videos, asking for responses from the families, to give a family homework assignment and have them post their answers or their responses to the blog, right on the blog, and to take photos and have those, and have people even take photos and they can upload it to the blog too. So this really makes it much more interesting than if it's just coming from you. And I think it's something that you have to maybe explain and teach your families, and that you want them to do this and how they can do it. So I don't think anybody can assume that everybody knows, automatically how to do this, and that's something that is part of your blogging life, is to teach your families how to get involved.
So there was already a question about how to get started, and Lisa mentioned that there are 2 archived webinars. So the URJ has 2 webinars on blogging that could be helpful for you. They have different foci. They're both found in the technology marketing section of the archived webinars. So when you go onto the page, you'll see that the archived webinars are broken down by different kinds of subject matters, and the URL for the archived page is right here on the bottom of the screen. So the first one is called Enter the Blogosphere, an Introduction to Creating a Blog, and it helps with the nuts and bolts of physically setting up your blog and helps you to think what you want the blog to look like. And as Nikki stated, that when you go in there, when you choose a platform, and I think, Melanie, you also said that you thought that Blogger was the easiest platform as well, correct?
Yes, it's the easiest for me.
That it's pretty easy to walk through to set up your blog, but this webinar, which is about an hour, also will walk you through some things, help you think through some questions that you might want to address for yourself before you set up your blog. So that's one of them. The second, Find Your Voice Congregational Blog Writing 101, helps you to be thinking about blogging to the community and ideas on how you want to keep it exciting and interactive. You have access to the slides of the presentation and also the recording of the presentation, and the recording has both the audio and the visual pieces, so you'll be able to watch the PowerPoint with the audio. It will run for you like that. So those are easy ways to get some help, and whenever you're ready, you can do it. We thought we would give you just some links to some blogs that you might want to see as examples. You will see, my apologies, you'll find the blogs from our 3 guest bloggers, as well as blogs from teachers in Rabbi Greninger's congregation, and Darim Online that was mentioned as well. They have a blog, and it actually is a little bit confusing. You wouldn't know, but Jew.0 is actually the blog for Darim Online, and they're an organization that works with Jewish institutions on using social media and technology in Jewish congregations, and very much their focus is on how to utilize these technologies and the social media for congregations, and so they could be very helpful. And they raise a lot of interesting questions and bring a lot of interesting things. Again, these are just ones so you can get a chance to see what they look like and what the possibilities are of what you could be doing with your blog. So we wanted to give you an opportunity now here at the end of the webinar to ask any remaining questions that you might have. We know that we have questions that people have typed in that we can address, but also if you would like to raise your hand or virtually raise your hand, Adam can also unmute you as well.
Well, maybe Debbie, you can say a word or two about the uploading, asking families to be involved in the danger of losing control of the content. I know you typed an answer, but is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think we're really talking when it is blogging, you know, while you do want to make it interactive in terms of giving people an opportunity to respond and to comment, I think somebody is still kind of driving what's going on. The difference between upload, where just anybody can upload, which really would be more of like a wiki format, you aren't you don't want to give away all of that control. I would even say if people wanted to like post pictures and things like that, there should be somebody that they should send them to who's going to make that determination. But you want to give them an opportunity to respond and to comment on issues that you're putting in there yourself.
There's a question about if Cheryl asked the question, if people are posting something that you think is inappropriate, can you delete it from the blog? Debbie or Nikki, can you answer that?
Yeah. I generally set my blogs up to moderate comments so that any comment I have to approve before it goes live. I don't get so many comments that it's you know, takes too much time, and you do run the risk of getting spam, and you don't want your readers to have to deal with that. So I automatically set them so that I have to moderate the comments. And when I have kids blog, I take a look at everything before we hit that post button.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is Nikki. I think it's a difference if you're trying to moderate the content of the person who's doing the blogging versus comments. So the comments, if you're asking for people to comment on something you've blogged, then as Debbie said, you can moderate that. There's a setting where it won't post until you approve it, so you can set that up automatically. But if you're talking about the content of the blog itself, like for example, I'm a director of education and my teachers one of my teachers posts something that I think is not good or inappropriate or needs to be taken down, then unless I have administrative rights on their blog, I actually can't do that myself. So there's a certain amount of trust involved of trusting what they're going to put, and if I need to moderate it, then I need to talk to them and ask them to take it down. But I can't necessarily do it myself unless they kind of give me that access or permission.
And someone asked about the time commitment involved in keeping an active blog. This is Melanie. I can answer just as a beginner. It doesn't take me a lot of time to keep my blog active. I do try to post once a week, and actually there was one week, for whatever reason, I think I was away and I wasn't able to, even though I probably could post, when I was away, I just didn't do it, and I had a parent come up to me and say, like, you didn't post. So I was really glad that I was embarrassed that I didn't post, but I was really glad that the parent noticed. So it really doesn't take me a long time to post. I would say maybe 15 minutes to write and post something up.
Yeah, I think, this is Nikki. I think that it's up to you in the sense that it can be a 5-minute thing if you just want to post a video or post a link or something like that. If you want to write something that's a little lengthier or more reflective or post a bunch of different pictures, it might take a little longer, although still no more than probably 20 minutes. So for me, it's more the idea of it that for a long time I didn't blog very often because I just kept thinking, oh, I have to update my blog, and feeling like it was this very onerous task. But once I realized that it's really a pretty minimal time commitment, 5, 10, 20 minutes a week, it's not very much, that if I just remember to do it, it's really not very time consuming at all.
There's one more question here about how to get people commenting. There's an active blog. They already have an active blog, but not many comments. Does that mean they're still successful, or how can we get our readers to start commenting? Debbie, you talked about that a little bit, having to just trust that it was successful even if you didn't get a lot of comments. And I guess I would also add that another way to think about and measure success is how it's impacting you as a teacher. If it inspires you to think differently about your teaching and to connect differently with your students and to reflect on what's happening in the classroom, and that in turn impacts how you're teaching the next time you're in the classroom, that too indicates success. But if one of the things you want to do is drive others to read and comment, I think that's another indicator. Debbie, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. And actually what you said in terms of it being an opportunity for reflection on your teaching was really beautifully put. And I think for many of us, that's what we're blogging for us. And I think that's okay. I tend to hear from people a lot of, oh, I read that in your blog, or I remember seeing that in your blog. And some people just don't want to comment for whatever reason. And some don't feel like they have anything important to say, and for some, the technology is scary. I think I've pretty much just gotten over it.
Yeah,
go ahead, Nikki.
Sorry. I was just going to say that I have been blogging myself pretty consistently for the last number of months, and I don't think I've gotten one comment. But I know people are reading it and sometimes even talking about it because I hear it. Or I'll be at a committee meeting and somebody will say, oh, that blog you wrote about, finding teachers or what makes a good teacher, and then it sparks a conversation. So I think sometimes your success is not in whether or not there are comments on the actual blog, but are people reading it and thinking about it, and is it affecting the way they think about what's happening in the classrooms and in our programs, and that's just as successful in my view as whether people type in comments or not.
I wonder if one of the ways to think about ensuring interactivity in a blog is to talk about it a lot and get people's feedback in other ways, not just comments. 2 is to do a lot of exploration of blogs that are out there that are not your own, and see which ones inspire you to want to engage with that blog and try and adapt some of those things. And just to try a variety of different of different ways. Great questions. We're going to move on to the last slide, and I think, Lisa, are you wrapping this up?
No, it's Melanie.
Melanie, sorry.
Oh, Melanie, right.
Go ahead.
Well, we all want to thank everybody for attending this webinar and for your active participation in questions and polling. We hope the webinar was interesting and inspiring for your own work. And we especially want to thank Debbie Harris and Rabbi Nikki Gredinger for their contributions and their expertise, and we really appreciate their help and guidance. And we also definitely want to thank Adam Carroll for his support in making the webinar happen and making it run as smoothly as it did. And finally, we just want you to know, if you have any further questions, that for any of us to just email me. My email is up there, mgoldberg@urj.org, and I will make sure that your questions get to the right person. So we wish you all much success with your teaching and with your blogging life. And b'hatzlacha and lehitraot.